Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the OnAire Podcast. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jordan.
So today, you get the privilege, just like I did, of meeting the one and the only Tommy Cocanougher. He is, I think the best way to say it, is one of SonicAire's longest-serving non-employee employees.
Yeah, that nailed it.
Yeah, because I've only been here 7, 8-ish years, and Tommy's been here a lot longer than I have. He was one of the first names that I heard coming in the door, and still here to this day. So we're excited that you get the chance to meet him. We get to learn a little bit more about what he was doing before he had his illustrious career in the laundry industry. We might even have some props to throw in there, something he may or may not have a patent on, but you have to stick around and find out.
Hey, I hope you enjoy the incredible human being that Tommy Cocanougher is. Thanks for watching. And we're back with the OnAire Podcast. Thanks for watching and checking us out. So today we're talking to probably one of the first customers I really collaborated and worked with when I got here to SonicAire over 15 years ago. And by far still one of my favorite customers I've ever worked with and collaborated with. And proud to have continued that relationship all these years. Mr. Tommy Cocanougher, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Good day to you. Good day.
So, Tommy, you've been around the block for a while. We met when you were with Cintas, working in the engineering department there and directing a whole lot of things. But take us back, introduce us to Tommy, and tell us the Tommy story. We want to know the Tommy story. We want to know about Tommy Cocanougher because I've gotten to know you over the years, and I think the whole world needs to get to know you as well.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'll try to not make a long story longer. I was born and raised in a very small historical town in Kentucky. And what I mean by that is there was a big Civil War battle there. It was 800 people there when I was growing up. It's 800 people today. So, it's just one of those small little rural communities, a farming community largely, and a lot of history, and I really didn't appreciate the history until I got older. Because when you grow up with it and you're in the middle of it all, you just can't fathom what went on and what all happened there. But anyway, it was neat, and looking back on it, it was a neat place to grow up. Went on to college, Western Kentucky University, started with Brunswick Corporation, which owned Zebco, the fishing tackle people, and I went to work for them for 14 years.
Tommy,
so
I gotta stop you right there because I knew we were going to talk about that today, and I had to bring it. I wish you were here to see this. This is one of the original Zebco 33s. It's
probably got my fingerprint on it somewhere.
It probably does. I'm pretty sure this is American made. This was my dad's fishing rod, probably late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
When he bought this one, and now my girls are still using it to catch fish today. So.
Well, good. I'm glad it still works for you.
Absolutely. It works great.
You did a good job, Tommy.
Oh, good. But yeah, I was there 14 years and did a little bit of everything in the manufacturing side of the business. I was operations manager for the assembly plant, R&D development engineer, manager, manufacturing engineering manager, a little bit of everything over 14 years. Then word got out that they were going to be moving. And they wanted to move to China. And they said, "You want to go to China?" I said, "Let me think about that." No. So anyway, I knew I had some time to, find something else to do. And I wanted really to stay in product manufacturing because that was, my skill and what I enjoyed. But I had a job offer from Cintas, which I didn't even know the industrial laundry business existed. I thought it was odd that people rented work clothes and things like that, but thought, well, I'll go there for 2 or 3 years till something else comes along. I was watching the economy, watching the job market, and 30 years later, well, 10 weeks short of 30 years, I retired with about 10 weeks to go to hit my 30 years because of some family situations I needed to take care of with my parents and such, and so. Anyway, it just wound up being a really remarkable business to be in. The industry is amazing. As big an industry as it is across all the companies that are in that industry, it's a small community. And we all know each other, and we all talk to each other, see each other at shows, make friendships. And like you mentioned, we go back, a lot of years, and we're not just vendors and suppliers and customers. We become friends over the years.
Yeah.
And so I did that. Was in production management, plant management for about half of that time, and then in engineering for the other half of the time, responsible for the western half of North America, working with vendors and suppliers in Europe, a considerable amount. And then finally he said, "Hey, it's time to go take care of me."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my wife and I love to travel. Our kids are both grown and gone out of the house. We're very proud of them and my daughter-in-law and all that they do in their careers. But my wife and I have 38, I think 38 years. I'm going to mess up and get that wrong if I'm not careful.
She won't listen to
Yeah,
this.
she's
Don't
not
worry.
listening
38
to
and
a
a half.
Dust
Let's call it 38
podcast.
and a half. But anyway, we travel with some friends that are very, very close to us. And there's a crew of us, of 5, that take off and go and just go do things. And we just got back from a remarkable trip. So it's a lot of fun.
Love
Got to
that.
go while you can.
Yeah, that's so cool. And, I haven't been here as long, and, 7, 8 years now, but I will tell you, I've heard Tommy Cocanougher's name several times. and I was telling people this morning, actually, because I was telling them who we were interviewing today. And just kind of like, I was like trying to explain it to him. I'm like, Tommy's been working for SonicAire longer than like I've been working for SonicAire, basically like helping do product development and stuff. And so it's a cool time to meet up and get to know you a little bit and some of the pre-stuff that we've done. But yeah, no, I'm very thankful for like the history that you've had with us and the connections that you guys have made over the years. So super excited.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's a big industry, but it's a small community, and we all know each other and build these relationships, and that's what makes it enjoyable. It's not just business.
So Cintas was able to hang on to you for quite a few years, and to get a really great employee and get them to stick around, you got to be doing something different. So what do you think it is that kept you there? What keeps other people there, and what makes Cintas great?
Well, I think it goes back to the culture of the company. How you treat people, how you take care of people. Do you treat them fairly? Give them opportunities. Um, work with them on a proper work life family balance. With their personal schedules, and just give people opportunity to be successful, and teach them and to develop them, and build that culture around that type of atmosphere. And your people are everything. I mean, the things that I accomplished, I didn't accomplish. My team accomplished it. My guys accomplished it. I was just a leader. I did a lot of things, had a lot of ideas. And just one example, I had a excuse me, I had a gentleman who was my stockroom manager when I was plant manager, and he was young and had not a lot of experience in that field, and so I was constantly feeding him ideas of things to do. I said, "You don't have to do these things. Here's some ideas of things that you can do that'll make you better, make you stronger. Go try it. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, great. At least you gave it a shot."
Yeah.
And he would go try these different things and have these different activities that he did within the stockroom there at the plant. And he would come back and report to me that, "Hey, I did this and this was wonderful," or "I did this and it just didn't work," or "I did this and I had to tweak it a little bit to make it work." I said, "Well, that's great. That's what it's all about. Is I give you the base foundational concept and idea, you take it and run with it, and you make it successful and make it yours." And people just love that. And when you build that type of culture in a business or in an industry, you're more likely to hang on to your good people.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to provide some promotional opportunities too. You can't put somebody in a job and say, "Well, you're going to be in that job for 30 years." Sorry, they've got to have other opportunities.
Yeah, they got to see some hope on the horizon.
Right.
Some new opportunities. So the sign of a really good leader is they never take credit for themselves. They're always giving credit to the rest of the team. But I happen to know that you have 2 U.S. patents yourself. So tell us about those.
All right. Well, that goes back to my days at Zebco, and everybody was a design engineer, right? And no matter what department you were in, you could design product. You could have an idea. You could give it to the true design engineers who put it in CAD and did all that hard work. But as you had ideas and as you had things, you got credit for that. And so my name wound up on a couple of U.S. patents that I'm very proud of. They're hanging on the wall back here behind me. So you get a little plaque and you get your name on there, and you get I think a $75 check, which is not going to do anything, but it's just the honor of having done that. Whether it's a design or whether it's a new mechanism or functionality or a use for something or whatever. So I was pleased to get in on that while I was there.
Was that on the Zebco fishing?
Yeah, that was at Zebco. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Wow. The man.
A little piece of Tommy right there.
All right. I love it. Gosh, this is so cool. Man.
Well, it's really good to hear because you think about like Cintas. We're a small business here, but we talk about culture. I mean, I would say it's not a day goes by. I would almost say like it's not a 2-3 hour period that goes by where we don't have to say something about culture here. And so it's such an encouragement to hear like people doing it well and doing it on a large scale. We talked about it on here. We talk about it in meetings and with peer groups all the time where it can never just be something that's on a wall. You can put those core values or the mission statement or the vision statement, whatever you want to call it. You can write that on the wall, but if the people aren't buying into it, and that's not who they are when they check in the morning, like it's not worth anything. Mm-hmm. But obviously, somebody sticking around with a business for 30 years means that it's important to them, but then also important to you. And this is the dust zone, the dust podcast or whatever. And so safety is a big part of that. And so can you tell us a little bit about, how you were pulled into that side of the industry, being in design and operations? Can you give us some of your background with that?
Yeah, I'll take you back a little bit to Zebco days. Safety wasn't a huge topic. We had safe operations. We talked about safety some, but it wasn't huge like it is today. I mean, that was 40 some years ago now. And so the safety topic or the safety culture and requirements have evolved a lot over the years. Even when I came to Cintas in 1994, safety was talked about, and we had some safety, very basic safety type things that we did that we had to do. But we didn't inspect our facilities the way that we do now. We didn't inspect the paperwork and the training and have the training and the teaching and development of safety systems and safety knowledge. And it evolved over time. And one of the things always at the top of my list, even back then when safety wasn't, a big official thing that we did, it was lockout and lockout tag out. That's the one thing that will get you if you don't do that. And there's falls and trips and slips and all kinds of other things, but lockout tag out was my number one. So I brought that into my plant as the first time they'd ever experienced lockout tag out, and I brought that in and we had it. And then as safety became a bigger topic at Cintas, there were teams developed that went in with basic checklists, and every quarter these checklists kept growing and growing and growing as we learned more and more and more. And a lot of that was driven by OSHA. As OSHA then starts to take notice of certain companies, they took notice of us. They took notice, not just us, but our industry, because they start comparing the incident rates of injuries from one industry to another to another. So the industrial laundry industry kind of came to the top a little bit. And of course, we being the bigger company within the industry, we got a lot more notice. So we had to up our game. And I had the opportunity in 2008. Excuse me. I had the opportunity in 2008 to join the engineering team, which then was combined with safety. Safety and engineering were together. And because the region I was in was a quite small operational region at that time, I covered both safety and engineering. So I went to some safety classes. I learned more about the OSHA regulations and the manuals and all the programs. And then we had our own internal programs that we had that we learned from. And then I did the engineering side, which was natural to me because that's where I had come out of. And it just evolved every month, every quarter. We were adding more and more and more requirements. So it was important to me at that point in time that we didn't just flood this stuff on top of our people. They needed to be led, they needed to be taught, and not just taught, hey, here's the requirements, do these requirements. They needed to be taught, why do we have these requirements? And it became natural and easy for me to see why certain things were important that OSHA may, put into a regulation. Some people maybe can read a regulation and go, why is that important? Why do you need to do that? But because of my background and my experience, I could read the regulation and go, yeah, that makes sense. Here's why it makes sense. Now let me teach that to the people as I go around to the 8, 10, 12 plants, plants I had at the time, and go around to those plants. Let me teach that to them. And I just say, look, here's the requirement. Go do it. I'll be back in 6 weeks and we'll grade you on it. Here's why you need to do that. And here's what can happen if you don't do that. And yes, I'll be back in 6 weeks. But at the same time, I wanted them to understand the why behind the what.
The why is so big to getting buy-in and getting people to be engaged. If they most people want to do the right thing if they understand why. If they feel like it's just a nuisance and just something they got to do because Tommy said so, there's probably not a lot of buy-in behind that. But if they understand why and they get especially if there's a safety element to it, it's going to help them go home safer and in one piece at the end of the day. A lot of people are happy to do the right thing.
Was there one that you found was more difficult to implement, or you had more pushback, or people struggled to see the why?
There was more than one. Housekeeping was always extremely important to us. Okay, that's from the floor to the ceiling. Housekeeping was tremendously important. But it was one of those things that people just didn't like to do. They didn't want to pick up the broom. They want to maybe clean their little work area, but they want to take an air hose and blow it over into the next person's work area. So we had to go through things like that from, say, the housekeeping standpoint of here's what we want our facility to look like, and here's why. And so that was an uphill battle constantly, because as you know, in our industry, we produce lint, a lot of lint, and you guys know that more than anybody. And so that was always an uphill battle. Was in the housekeeping area, why we needed to do that, why we couldn't have a puddle over here on the floor. Yes, we use a lot of water in our business. You're going to have some puddles that form, but you can't just walk around them or walk through them. And so we had to teach people, when you see a puddle, here's what you do. Now, be sure you do that. If it's in your work area, do that. And we had our share of OSHA fines, and citations over puddles of water on the floor. But I know there were other companies and other industries that had the same thing, and they had their fair share of. I mean, that's an easy thing for an OSHA inspector to see when they walk in, and it's an indicator of if you're taking care of those basics and fundamentals, and your place looks sharp. They're going to have to dig deeper to find something else. And so we always had reasons we wanted our place to look the best and look the nicest that it could.
That's what our safety guy says. He says, take care of the easy things, make it look nice, and then bore them with documentation, so that we can keep ourselves like risk free.
Well, and that's what I tell people as well when we're talking to people in various dust industries that, yes, there's the NFPA documents, the 660 on combustible dust requirements, but OSHA isn't going to necessarily come in and say, do you meet 660? But if they come in and you can say, hey, we meet 660 and here's how we do it, then they're going to go, oh, you actually are paying attention. You actually care about a safe workplace. You care about the safety of your employees, and you probably know what you're doing. I'm going to give you a pass on that. Let's go on to something else.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because they've got a limited amount of time that they're there, and their job is to find something, right? I mean, let's face it. They're like the traffic cop with a radar gun. His job is to write a ticket before the day's over. So I get that. And our job is to make our place as perfectly safe as we can, as perfectly clean as we can, and keep our paperwork in order. And like you said, here's all the paperwork. Take it and take a look at it. We'll give you a plant tour. We'll show you what you want to see. But we got better at that. As time went on, we understood how that absolutely had to be done. And we were taking those shortcuts. And then it brings us up to the Lint thing. And that's where we met Jordan. Would you say 15 years ago?
Yeah, 16 years ago.
So anyway, prior to that, and this was one of the jobs that everybody just hated. We knew we had to blow down the plant probably once a quarter. And if you really could, depending on the weather, you could probably stretch it into once every 6 months. But really once a quarter was when it needed to be cleaned up really good. And by blow down, I mean you're up on a man lift with an air gun with a long hose, and somebody's up there blowing all this stuff down off the rafters. And other people are down below cleaning up the mess that's coming down. And because that lint just goes up and it gets everywhere, and it gets in the rafters, and it gets on top of machines, and it gets on top of ductwork, it's got to come down because it's a fire hazard, right? And it may not be that the lint burns. Something else may burn, and then the lint smolders and drops down into a basket of pants or shirts or something else that's on the floor, and it's smoldering. Well, then you've got another fire down there. So the cleaning up process was just awful, especially if you're having to do it, if your time to do it is in the summertime. It was just awful on a Saturday morning when you'd rather be at home, you'd rather be on the lake fishing or whatever it is that you do. And you got to have your crew in there doing this horrible, horrible job of cleaning this lint from up on high and then down low. And so we came upon this fan concept from SonicAire. And we looked at it, and we went and visited and met there at your old smaller factory.
Very small place. Very small place.
Discovered that, hey, this has application, and let's build a program around it, try it, test it. And we did, and it just went on from there, and it was tremendous.
So let me back up a little bit before I get too far ahead of myself. I have so many things. So the housekeeping piece, you were saying that was one of the struggles, and that's one of the interesting things, because it seems like in the laundry industry, like cleanliness is going to be one of your top priorities, just from even like the eye test of thinking about like when laundry goes away from a hotel or from a rental service or whatever, just like being airtight on cleanliness so that you don't infect anything. But So housekeeping was the junction that got you guys connected with SonicAire?
Yes. Yeah, that was the lint control, the housekeeping part of that was how we got connected. And we needed some better method in the plant to be able to get this stuff blown down on a regular basis. Because it was just a horrible job. You go around trying to find volunteers to, say, hey, on Saturday, 3 weeks from now, I need a team to help me do this. Well, you're looking at everybody scattered. They're like mice.
More of a voluntold situation, it seems like.
And so we would just have to, we'd have to be a voluntold situation, and we're going to do this. And hey, I pitched in too as a plant manager. I was right in there. I'd take my turn up on the man lift, and then you get hot, and then you come down and rotate people. Somebody else goes up, and you're down there with you got a mask on, and you got a broom, you got a vacuum. We even at one point in time, Jordan, and you may know this company or not, but prior to the fans, we used these vacuum systems from Upkeeper, was the name of the company. And it was a big vacuum unit that sat on top of a 55-gallon drum that was on wheels. And it was pretty good, but you had to stand on the ground, or if you're up in the air, the hose would probably be long enough if you made it long enough. But you would stand there with this big long pipe, plastic pipe, trying to reach 20, 25 feet up in the air to get to all the places. Well, you couldn't get to all the places with it. It was a good, strong vacuum, but you just couldn't get the reach and into the tight areas that you needed to get to, like a fan would do. A fan that goes up there and is going to blow it down at high velocity and get it. We just couldn't get it with the Upkeeper vacs. And so we tried that in a few plants and said, no, that's not going to work. It's a good concept for some things, but it wasn't a good concept for that. And so we were on the search for something and came across SonicAire.
So one of the questions I get asked, particularly in the laundry industry when I'm talking to people at trade shows and things like that, they want to know with the fans running, I think you all used them nightly, if my memory serves me correctly. Mm-hmm. They want to know, where does the lint go? And is it going to be all over my garments? And where is it going? So how, with your experience, how would you answer that?
Well, what we had to do when we first installed the fans, before we turned them on the first time, we did what we called a deep clean. It would be what you could consider the last big major blowdown with a team of people, excuse me, up on a man lift doing that. We had to do a deep clean to get that down. Well, then if you did turn the fans on every day, there was such a minute amount of lint. You got your buildup over 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. A 1 day buildup wasn't much. But, you let it go a week, you let it go a month, you got more. And so, the lint does disperse, and the lint comes, into the atmosphere and down. But if you do it every day, it's not an issue.
Yeah, that's what.
But you got to start out clean. You got to start with a clean slate before you flip that switch on the first time.
That's right. I try to explain it to people. Like in my mind, it's like if you go look at the top of your refrigerator, it's probably got all kinds of lint and nasty up on top of it. But if you wipe it and clean it off today, when you come back and clean it again tomorrow, you're going to go, well, I don't really need to clean it because I just cleaned it yesterday. Right. But that's it. Right. If you're cleaning it every single day, it never gets dirty. And you're not, right. you even the cloth you use to clean it looks clean.
Yeah.
Right. And we knew where our major problem areas were. They were above the pressing area because the steam and the hot air from the presses takes the lint up with it and deposits it. It was above the steam tunnel. If you had any hot air or steam coming out of that, it goes up. And then in the wash alley, around the dryers. So the tops of those machines need to be kept clean. And we really didn't want people up on ladders and stuff, trying to get up there and keep that clean. So the fans, it made sense to have the fans in those key places. And then the portable fan that served the rest of the facility. And that worked out very well for us.
Yeah, and so that's where I was incredibly appreciative of Tommy's background in manufacturing, because Tommy came out and helped us redesign that thing. That was so just to be clear, anybody that's listening to this that's not from the laundry industry, the portable fan is not for you.
Yeah, it's off limits, not for sale, unless ... you're in the laundry industry.
Yes, but if you're in the laundry, because it is a blowdown tool, and so for the laundry industry, and when we're talking about lint, that works okay. But in any other industry that's just dust, we do not want to blow down and create a combustible dust cloud. But for the laundry industry, when we're talking about lint, it is good to go. And so when we brought that product to market, and I'm talking about Brad, I actually was not an employee of SonicAire yet when I went to the first trade show with Brad, where we met Cintas, and you guys looked at the fan that we had there at the booth and said, we want one kind of like this where we can do this with it, but it can't look like this because this is not going to meet our standards, and it's got to be different. It's got to be better.
I love, we have a little bit of a museum upstairs on one of our mezzanines. We've got all these different fan blades and little parts and like SonicAire through the years. And one of the pieces up there is like the original little crank arm, like chain and sprocket that was used to lift the original MobileFlex.
Yeah, and Brad even had a design where you guys never saw this one, thankfully, but he could hinge the fan and tip the fan over and make it real short. But it would the weight and the cantilever, anyway, it was a disaster. We had to move on from that one very quickly. As Brad says, fail fast, fail cheap. And so that ain't working. We got to trust.
Well, and I don't think you actually even intended for us to see that portable.
That is correct.
It wasn't for us. We spotted it over in the corner.
It was under a tarp or a sheet. Yeah.
And it said, hey, we've got an idea for that. We can use that, but it needed to be fixed to be used on a regular daily basis, in the plant, and had to have some strengthening gussets put in and some different things. And so, yeah, you didn't even intend for that to be there.
It was like the Wizard of Oz, pay no attention to what's behind the curtain kind of thing. And they were like, no. We actually kind of like that. So
I feel like that's how a lot of sales calls go, where we end up in engineering saying, you did what? You sold what?
Yeah.
But no, that's really cool. And so you guys met at the trade show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you started talking about the portable.
Mm-hmm.
And then was this at Blue Rock Court?
Yeah. And
they came out and visited and started working on.
They brought, it was Tommy, Eric, and another gentleman came out, and we dissected it, and they went like this, don't like that, brace this, safety that, and safety that. And then it might work for us. And then even after the initial rollout and kind of starting to get a couple into the plants, we found ways that we didn't think people would tip it over or break it or whatever. And we learned from that and had to make it safer and safer, and add some other features, add some other safety labels and all that stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It really was a true partnership. It absolutely was. It was doing it together.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's really cool when we have those opportunities. We have a couple other customers where we've had kind of this iterative process. They're like, hey, this is the problem that I've got. And so we'll go check it out and hang out with them and see if we can solve it and work through it. And so it's really cool because, we're still today making modifications to the MobileFlex so that it can better serve the people that we're trying to do. We're working through some kinks, even with like supply chain disruptions and whatnot, trying to figure out how to sustain this product. And Cintas has so many of them. And so making sure that they're always up and running and that we're ready to go and get them fixed.
What's remarkable to me, though, is that Tommy and Cintas partnered with us to make this product, but the rest of the industry gets to benefit from their efforts and their emphasis on safety and recognizing that, hey, there's a better way forward for doing this terrible process that we have to go through in this industry. And so you guys made it better, not only for your company, but also for the rest of the whole industry.
Definitely changed the industry because we hear that. We're saying like, hey, we just did a plant tour at Cintas and we got to have one of those things.
Yeah. Happens all the time.
Well, that's one thing we've always said, even from our CEO and chairman of the board and all these folks on down through the whole organization, is we're going to compete on a lot of things. But when it comes down to safety, we're going to partner, no matter what the company is or who you are or what kind of competitor you are. Safety's for everybody.
I love it.
Now, there's engineering things we're not going to share,
Sure.
within our plants. Projects and things that we've done, and certain. I'm not even going to go into those because I shouldn't. I'm not there anymore after retiring. But we're not going to share those. But when it comes to safety, we will share.
Competitive advantage.
Yeah. And that's so cool because it really does it moves industry. You get to see kind of a transformation take place. So what was the rollout like? I know you guys helped get this thing off the ground, and then all of a sudden you show up with this contraption and say, guess what? This is what we're working with, and this is why we're doing it. But I'm sure that was a bit of a hurdle.
Well, first we had to develop the program. And so we got a team together between safety engineering and some other folks in production and said, look, this is what we want to do. We need the safety program built around it. How often to use it, how to use it, how to set it up, how to keep the work area safe while you're doing, especially the portable fan. But the stationary fans that were in the wash alley and around, that's easy. You get those installed and you have a schedule, and you just require the plant to maintain that schedule. So the rollout, we got all the training materials put together. We got all the schedules put together. We had the initial training, probably, I'm going to think it was probably online back then, but I'm not certain because, the online thing has really evolved as well too, right? But anyway, we had a rollout and say, look, the advantage is you don't have to do this horrible blowdown process, but one more time once you get your fans. When you get your fans, you do that, you do the deep clean, and then the fans take care of it from there on out. And that was the buy-in, that people had. And so that made them want to jump on board and do that. And we scheduled a number of plants. I don't remember how many plants it was to start with, but we rolled out a few at a time, 10, 15 at a time. One, because that's what we could handle. Two, that's because what Jordan could handle.
That's right.
That's right. Number, 3 or 4 fans per location. They had to get built, and we had to get them installed. So then we could speed it up. So this rollout at that point in time, took about 3 years, maybe 4. And now, there's a lot more plants now than I had back then. So as it went through the years, obviously we added more. But the training was just really important. We had to have the rollout. We had to have the explanation of what we're doing. The training had to be there. We had to complete that training. They had to check off that they did the deep cleans, ready for installation of the fans, and then follow up to make sure they understood the schedule and the process and had everything that they needed. We put a kit together for use of the portable fan that included, some sandbags to put on the legs for tip over. We had cones and chains that went around the area. We had to have mats to put over. I think we needed a power cord and an airline, I believe is what we needed.
That's right.
To go to. So wherever they had to run to, we had to have that area made safe, so that there wouldn't be a trip hazard. So we put these kits together and said, this is what you have to have. And here's the schedule, and here's the pattern of your plant on how you will cover all of your necessary areas.
You all put dots on the floor, didn't you? We
did initially. Yeah. We did initially put dots on the floor and then on a drawing to match up to it. Mm-hmm. I said, hey, set the fan right here, let it run 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then move it to the next spot. Mm-hmm. And it worked well.
Tommy's doesn't know it, but he's hitting on that culture thing again, where he's talking about the training, and Tommy's a teacher, if you can't tell already by picking up on what he's putting down. But Tommy's a teacher, and so there was a lot of teaching in that. There was a lot of the why, but a lot of the benefit too. Right. And then there's some accountability in there, which great leaders always have as well.
Right. Yeah, and that was important to be sure that everybody understood, and because then, as we learned, through the years, OSHA has a regulation on how much lint accumulation you can have on top of any flat surface, and you just didn't want to have that. You didn't want to get caught with that because it was a sure thing. You're not running your fans if we walk in and see that, and so that was a good rollout for us. And it took several years, and then as we grew, as we added plants, the fans became a standard part of the new plant equipment. And then we had an acquisition with the G&K company, a few years later. We had that roll out with them in much the same manner.
Yeah, you're talking about the acceptable levels of lint. And we keep talking about OSHA, but they had their national emphasis program on combustible dust, and they reissued that again in 2023. And they added a paragraph, and in that paragraph it says for targeting workplaces that generate dust and lint. And I get a little nervous anytime a government agency uses the word targeting, but I mean, that's what they're doing. That's what they're looking for. And they know who makes dust and lint, and they come in the door looking for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one thing too and I don't know where we got the videos from, whether it was from you guys or from just YouTube and the internet, but, we've seen videos of the fires and the explosions in the grain business and in the sugar business, and the sugar plants where that's processed and everything, and the documentaries that have been produced about that. We used a lot of that for training our folks. Say, look, we don't have that level of danger, but we do have danger.
Yeah.
If you get a big old slug of lint up here that catches on fire somehow and drops down, you don't know where it's going to go and what it's going to catch on fire. So
yeah, I've heard several stories about laundries that have caught on fire because a primary fire starts in one area of the plant, but then it catches the lint on fire in the ceiling, and it just runs. And the next thing you know, the whole plant's fully engulfed, and it's too late to do anything about it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you all are able to take advantage of some of what the other industries have fallen into, even though you don't have the same risk. I think it's a great way to approach it because, we work in the grain market now, and so like we understand that, and that's typically our sales pitch. A lot of times is like, this is the worst case, and so it's interesting that jumps industry to industry, even when classifications or like even what your AHJ would say about your area may not push that.
Right.
One of the interesting things you were talking about rolling this out, and just kind of my little one connection piece of this is like right when I started, still trying to learn the fans and what these things even do and whatnot, and like doing some of the layouts and whatnot. I would occasionally see Cintas and whatnot, but then they made that acquisition, and then all of a sudden, like half the production line was just making mobiles and MobileFlexes for like a month. And so we had somebody that was like the only thing that they were doing. And I was like, what happened? And they were like, oh, Cintas bought a company, so we gotta roll these out.
That's right. That's great. So Tommy, I know you're kind of 1 foot out of the industry now, but what were some of the
Make no mistakes.
Both feet are on vacation.
Well,
that's what I'm talking about.
I see you on LinkedIn. You're still engaged. But as you were on your way out the door, let's say that, what were some of the safety innovations, or what were some of the new things that you saw that just kind of sparked your interest, or you said that's going to be something that really helps this industry? Anything new kind of coming along, or something over the horizon that maybe you see coming as well?
No, not so much. I think internally, and there are some things obviously I can't talk about that Cintas was being developed as I was there my last several months. There were some processes and stuff being improved and things like that. I just think the continued focus on the vendor customer relationship is is still key. It always has been key, will continue to be key. And I'm not smart enough to talk about AI. I can't spell AI, so I don't know anything about that and how that's going to impact the business or the industry. But from all indications of what I hear is that there are all kinds of things that will happen, across all of manufacturing and processing companies, not just our business, but other businesses as well. They're going to be impacted by what machines can do and how things are measured and the weights and measures and the water levels. And think about the laundry, all the things that go into that, your water temperatures, your water levels, your chemistry going into the machines, your drying times, drying cycles, whether they're on time or temperature or humidity or whatever. All of those things that go into that can now possibly be measured in a different way. And eventually somebody's going to come up with how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Robotics is another big field. And I think there is a lot of application for robotics. A lot of the manufacturers of the equipment are already putting in robotic concepts into the equipment. And I'm seeing that actually the last few years that I was there, and even more in the last couple of years since I've been gone. I've seen a lot more robotic concepts start to come about.
We
That's pretty exciting.
Saw some of that at the Clean Show a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was pretty neat. Our booth was right across from a booth that had a robotic arm, and it was taking the clothes on the hangers and putting it on a different rack and that sort of thing. And I was just hoping it would short out and just start throwing clothes. I was pulling for it, and it dropped a few over the few days we were there, but it did really well. It's pretty fascinating.
There's a lot of application for robotics in the business because it's a very repeatable process, but then you're dealing with something that's not easily picked up and handled.
Sure.
And that's the challenge. And I think eventually somebody will get there.
Yeah. So if you were talking to somebody, not a Cintas facility manager, who is maybe new to the industry or they've been in it for just a little while and they're kind of getting going, and what kind of words of wisdom, what kind of advice would you give them to say, if you do these things, you're gonna have a great career in this industry?
Oh goodness, the list is this long.
Yeah,
we've got our notepads. We're ready to listen.
Yeah.
Well, first, care about your people.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell you some horror stories of how come that's number one. But care about your people. Take care of them. Teach them, train them, develop them. Again, going back to what we talked about earlier, give them the support, give them concepts and ideas and some things to do to help them be successful. Because when they feel successful and they are successful, they're going to go the next level. They're going to step up and they're going to want more and do more. Give them opportunities. Talk about the what behind the why, like we've talked about. And just help them be a part of what's going on. But the way that you treat people and the culture that you have with how you treat people in the workplace will be the one thing that'll make or break you.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
That doesn't just apply to laundries, Tommy. That's universal.
Right.
Yeah. That's a universal
exactly.
thing right there.
Exactly.
It's something that we work hard on.
The other thing is take good notes. I taught my guys for years and years and years. Always carry something to write on and something to write with. Because as you're walking through the plant with whoever, somebody's going to need something. They're going to want something. They're going to have a question. They're going to need to know, what something about their insurance, or they're going to need this, or they're going to need that. You're not going to have all the answers off the top of your head, but how you manage that information flow and getting back to that person, or how you manage taking care of something, is going to depend on how well you remember things. Most of us need to write things down.
Yeah.
My favorite Matthew McConaughey quote.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah. I say this all the time. Matthew McConaughey said, I don't write it down so I can remember it. I write it down so I can forget about it. And I thought that was just so profound. And I went, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, out of sight, but not out of control.
That's right.
That's good.
Love it.
Having some way to track your commitments and everything. It's like the Rainer thing that we've been reading into here recently. And so, yeah, just great tools because that's even an extension of taking care of your people, like you were saying. Like when they know that you can follow through and that like your yes is yes, that goes a really long way with developing trust and accountability. If you're able to hang on to those things,
hold yourself accountable.
Well, I think too with the new generation coming on, the new generation of tools that we have, this thing right here is handy. But if you've got it with you, and say Susie Jane stops you and says, "Hey, I need to see if I can get off next Friday. Can you check and let me know?" Well, then you're punching it in, and she doesn't know if you hear what she says or not. But if you take a notepad out of your pocket and you write it down, she probably knows that you're hearing what she's saying. And I think how am I going to say this? There's the danger of alienating people with the use of technology sometimes. And we need to revert back maybe to some of the old-fashioned ways. And I'm kind of old-fashioned, probably because I am old, I guess. But I think we've got to be careful with the technology to make sure we don't lose connection with the people on the production floor.
Yeah.
And the people who work with us, our engineers, our sales reps, whoever it is. We don't want to lose that connection and rely on technology for everything.
Keeping that human element.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. And I think one of the good ways that I've heard of it is like, we talk about people being good at what they're good at and manufacturing, and we're good at taking that dust hazard away. But, we have to continue to be good at the things that we're good at, like relationship building and emotional intelligence, and use the other tools for the things that they're good at. My phone is not meant to be made to have a relationship with somebody else. Like I need to do that. It's just a tool to help with that. But yeah, when we just decide that that's going to take it over and that's going to be the relationship, then that's where it starts to fall apart. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Tommy, I can't thank you enough. I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together today and catching up again. I hope the rest of the world gets to watch this and see this and get to know a little bit more about the infamous Tommy Cocanougher.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. It's good to see you guys again. I don't get to the trade shows. I don't see you around, but anytime you're in Oklahoma, you're welcome to stop by and we'll have a Pepsi or a Coke or whatever you like.
Would love that.
Yeah.
All right. We have made it to the end of another OnAire podcast. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, send it to someone you like or someone you don't like. I don't care. Just have somebody else watch it so they can come up to speed on the stuff that we're talking about here. If you did enjoy it, give us a thumbs up down below, like, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for watching. I'm Jordan.
I'm Taylor.
And this is another episode of the OnAire Podcast. Thanks.
See ya.